In a previous video, we talked about the blood groups A, B, AB, and O, and how the different antigens, attachment, and the antibodies surrounding it allow them to either donate or not donate to other blood groups. I had mentioned that we would talk about positive and negative, and so this video is going to discuss the positive and negative nature of blood, and then how does that play into the role of transfusion. So when we draw a blood cell, we basically just draw a circle. And in the last video, we showed A and B antigens attached, which made it A or B or AB. In this case, if we draw a positive type of blood versus a negative type of blood, the difference is going to be the positive blood is going to have a third or another antigen on it. So you have to make sure you watch the previous video before this makes any sense. So these positive antigens are attached to the red blood cell. And because they have the antigen, a person that has positive blood would not have antibodies that would fight this antigen. So therefore, the negative blood individuals do not have a negative antigen. There is no such thing. A negative person would have zero antigens. It's very much like this O blood type, where O blood had zero antigens on the outside. So because this person that has negative blood does not have an antigen that is negative, it basically says we don't have the positive antigen. So that means that there is an antibody that would fight that antigen if it were present. So these are the positive. So this is a positive antibody. And that would fight an antigen that was shaped like that if it ever came in contact with this person. So there's just a very quick general rule. So if I separate this and said, which of these arrows represents a good transfusion and which would be kind of a deadly, and what would happen is the blood would clot. If you went from left to right or following this arrow, these antibodies that are present would fight this antigen and thus cause a clot. If you go from right to left, there is no antigens on this cell and there's no antibodies over here. So this way is good. All right. So positive to negative does not work. Negative to positive is a more appropriate and is acceptable to do. So if you do other examples, you can play with the letters as well to kind of bring them all together. So if someone has A positive blood, sorry, that was not what I wanted to do there. So if they have A positive blood, they have a series of A antigens, which I think in the last video we drew as these, and then the positive antigens. So someone that potentially has A negative blood would just have the A antigens attached. So now let's look at the antibodies that surround. If you have A positive blood, that means the only antibodies you would have are these B antibodies. Separate. And if you have A negative blood, you're going to have the B antibodies, but you also will have the positive antibodies. So once again, if this cell right here tried to enter this quadrant, then or this half of the picture, these antibodies would attack, and that's what causes the clot. But if this cell right here transferred over to this side, there'd be nothing in the antibodies. Again, the antibodies are the fighters. There'd be nothing for the fighters to attack because they wouldn't recognize anything. So that's just a very quick extension of blood typing, and now you have the idea of what positive and negative does for transfusion.